On the Twitter sphere, I think that's what they call it. Why is DJ Lagway getting more preseason hype, love, adoration than LaNorris Snellers right now? A great question from Brad Crawford. I love this one. I bookmarked it, Brad, and we are so happy to have you on. I'm so happy to be talking to you right now. Brad, I want to start with this question. Obviously, I know you're a guy that has a lot of love for the Gamecocks, and you study LaNorris Snellers very, very closely. But I want to ask you your own question. Why did you feel like it was, hey, I got to bring DJ Lagway into this conversation? Two of these guys, two of the best, most elite playmakers at their position in college football. Give us a little context on the tweet.
Yeah, I'll just start, man. I think both these guys are going to be top 3, maybe top 4 SEC quarterbacks next season. Both are probably going to be in the Heisman conversation. But here we are, March 3rd, man, the first 2.5 months or so of 2025. I just don't understand why DJ Lagway has received just considerably more offseason hype than Snellers after both these guys had terrific years, and Snellers was the national freshman quarterback of the year. I don't want to go just stats-wise, but Snellers had more passing yards, a better completion percentage despite 100 more attempts, more touchdowns, less turnovers, 600 more yards rushing, and oh, by the way, he led the Gamecocks to 6 straight wins to end the year, 3 against ranked teams, and had South Carolina for the first time in program history in that playoff conversation. So, I mean, LaNorris Snellers from September to November, there's probably not a player in college football who made bigger strides under center at the quarterback spot than Snellers. And like I said, I think he and Lagway are going to be great. But based on what we saw last season on the field, I'm just surprised that Lagway has been ranked so much higher in a lot of these preseason power rankings.
Well, I'm gonna echo the sentiment that you said on both these guys being the stars of today and tomorrow of college football. And I think LaNorris Snellers, obviously, when you even go to Indianapolis and you talk about some of these guys that faced him in the SEC, the Walter Nolans of the world, Nick Scorton, all these guys, Shamar Stewart, they said the toughest guy that they played was LaNorris Snellers. So there's a lot of hype. I will make the case for one DJ Lagway on the other side. And I think, the other thing that you have to bring into consideration here is LaNorris Snellers is a grade older than DJ Lagway. You think about DJ Lagway, the number 1 player, at the position coming out just a year ago. You think about all the hype around him as well. And this is a situation where he gets slowly worked into the season. And you look at Florida and you look at that situation, Billy Napier was really dead in the water. Then DJ Lagway comes in. He starts his first game against Tennessee. He plays in 7 games. He's 5-2 during that time. And this is a completely different team. And then, Brad, this is kind of where the argument gets a little ambiguous, right? Because it's a subjective versus objective feel. You could look at the stat box and say, hey, one player's a lot better. And then you can look at the other player and say, hey, maybe he didn't produce in those same individual categories, but in terms of elevating his team, that's what he did. And nobody, just like they didn't want to play LaNorris Snellers in South Carolina at the end of the season, they didn't want to play Florida, DJ Lagway as well. Billy Napier is the head coach of the Florida Gators because he got DJ Lagway right, and he's been going through a lot of turbulence during his time there. He got a lot of other parts right too, but he has been given extended life because he got the quarterback position right. So on the side of DJ Lagway and LaNorris Snellers, I think both these guys, are going to be the faces of college football this season.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this, but the injury to Graham Mertz, Coop, was a blessing in disguise for Florida. It allowed DJ Lagway, the kind of leash to come off of him and to get more reps late in the year. And like you said, I mean, the second half of the season, Snellers and Lagway were playing as good as anybody in the country. That includes Heisman winner Travis Hunter. So, I mean, I think Lagway is a player that maybe his upside is higher as a passer. Snellers more of the dual threat type at, 6'5", 245 pounds. There's a reason Snellers has been, nicknamed kind of baby Cam Newton from those around the SEC, is because he's such a load to bring down, whereas DJ is always going to be a, pass first type guy. He's mobile, but he has a good arm. So Lagway and Snellers, we're going to be talking about these guys a long time over 2025.
Yeah, Brad, you used the word maybe in terms of a passer. Now, I'm not going to say maybe. I'm going to say, as of right now, DJ's a better passer, the younger guy. So when you study the stats, DJ's stats are more impactful than LaNorris. LaNorris' stats stand ahead of his. That's okay. Just give me a second. Are ahead of his just because they're looming and they look good. But when you look at just the raw playmaking ability and the importance of those plays and those throws, Yeah, DJ impact more than LaNorris Sellers for the Florida Gators than he did for the Gamecocks last year. That's just on film.
I don't know, man. There were tons of third downs where without LaNorris Sellers, I mean, Spencer Rattler would have been sacked 55 times last season. Sellers got sacked 40 times behind a bad offensive line. Whereas in comparison, Florida had one of the better O lines in the country. That's why Lagway, didn't get banged up the way LaNorris did. LaNorris had a 75-yard touchdown run against LSU, had a 3-touchdown lead in that game. Had he played in the second half and Robbie Ashford not have had to, lead 5 scoreless possessions, maybe the Gamecocks from the playoff and LaNorris Sellers is the first team All-SEC quarterback. So I think he's a guy on third down, Smoke, that really changed the complexion of South Carolina's offense. The one question I have this year going into spring practice is sort of like Penn State and Drew Aller. I mean, who is wide receiver 1 at South Carolina? Florida and Lagway, we know the weapons around him, some guys coming back, some guys they got in the portal. The Gamecocks still need a wide receiver 1. And unless it's Nick Harbor stepping up in a big way that, I don't foresee happening, you have to kind of wonder the weapons around LaNorris. Is he going to have the same numbers he had last season? So I don't know, man. I like LaNorris Sellers right now if I had to take a quarterback in the SEC to start my franchise. But DJ Lagway is right up there for me, too.
Yeah, and like you said, the truly and better dynamic runner, that's not DJ's game. But when you're talking about just quarterback play from the pocket with poise, throwing the ability to throw it with touch, anticipation, that's the kind of guy that you want to be able to build your program around. Not saying that you can't do it with North Sellers, because that's just another way of doing it. But the way that I would want to do it, and I think the way that Billy Napier wants to do it, is with DJ. And DJ just poses a different threat just because he can beat you both with his legs. And we didn't see that a lot just because he had the hammy injury. But he's a good runner. But he's just a better passer right now. When you're a dual threat player, you have to be able to throw the ball. One guy just runs the ball at a better clip right now in terms of the Sellers.
Yeah, I think that the beauty about this is it depends what your preference is, right? I think LaNorris Sellers, DJ Lagway, both these guys, especially when you start talking about NFL traits, LaNorris Sellers is going to be one of those guys NFL teams are going to be coming back to. Brad, you mentioned guys like Cam Newton. I think Anthony Richardson's going to come up as well, maybe more similar, comparable from a passing skill set standpoint right now. DJ's still got 2 years left as well. There's no wrong answer. That's the beauty of this. Brad, you also have some daring predictions out for 2025. One of those, I got to be honest, it surprised me a little bit. Alabama winning the SEC championship. And, Brad, I just got to ask you, what's your confidence level in that quarterback situation there in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, confidence level in the quarterback situation is not high at all. But look, the last 2 off seasons, man, I have been down on Bama. Last 2 years, I'm one of the few national guys who has picked Bama not to reach the playoff. They kind of backed in 2 years ago when they upset Georgia and Atlanta and got that last bid with, Milroe to play Michigan and lose at the 1-yard line. But last season's team, that's not indicative, man, of what we're going to see out of Caleb DeBoer at Bama. I have not sold all my DeBoer stock yet. I think the quarterback position from a passing standpoint is going to be better off this season. You bring in Grubb from the Seahawks. He is DeBoer's right-hand man. We're going to see Ryan Williams have a 1,000-yard, 15-touchdown type season. He's going to develop into a true, top 10 caliber pick. I think late in the year last year, Ryan Williams struggled a bit because maybe him and Jalen Milroe weren't on the same page in that passing game. This is going to change, whether it's Ty Simpson, Keelan Russell, or maybe the wild card Austin Mack. But Bama's going to be better suited at quarterback, and I think the schedule this season sets up favorably for a SEC championship run.
Yeah, schedule, I agree with you. Quarterback is kind of sus right now because there's no way that you can tell me that a second-round draft pick, which right now that's where they're having Jalen Milroe go, is not a better player than Ty Simpson. Now, throwing the football is also great, but who's he throwing to other than Ryan Williams? I mean, there's just holes all over the place in receiver number 2 and number 3, and there's a spot out there at right tackle and left guard that we don't know who's playing. So you make me feel good. My wife feel good as well, too, by saying you believe that they will be in the SEC championship. But, man, I'm scratching my head right now just figuring out how are they going to get these wins.
They got some pieces. Isaiah Horton they bring over from Miami. Jeremy Bernard comes back as well. This is a team, offensive line. They're going to have to mix some things up a little bit. Brad, the one thing that you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned his name there a little bit. Similar to Florida, I'm not saying they're going to be in the same kind of win-loss predicament that Florida was in last year. But when you look at Alabama, the young signal caller, Keelan Russell, I'm looking at this thing. His mouth has to be salivating a little bit. I mean, we love this kid here at 24/7 Sports, and you think about his play style, where he's come from, Duncanville, this guy, championship pedigree, Ryan Grubb, new offensive coordinator. And if you're Kalen DeBoer, and we talked about this with John Talty, you're trying to balance timelines between the short term and the long term, and you're in year 2. And guess what? Maybe it doesn't go well with a Ty Simpson or an Austin Mack. I'd have a quick trigger on Keelan Russell because I think that kid is different, and you can also sell the now and you can sell the future as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. That it's going to be a short leash on both those guys. Ty Simpson, foreseeably, man, could lose a third quarterback competition in his career. How many guys can say they've done that entering spring practice? He's a guy that has to show it, too. I mean, he has had opportunity behind Jalen to, supplant QB1 and take that job by the horns, and he just hasn't done it. So I do think the odds-on favorite to be the starting quarterback in September is Ty Simpson. But long-term, this is Keelan Russell's offense. This is his program. Bama kept him for a reason, and, he's kind of the guy that DeBoer has tied his ship to. I mean, he's the guy that if Bama makes the playoff 2 of the next 3 seasons, Keelan Russell's going to be the one that's leading the way.
Yeah, it's ironic because it's very similar to South Carolina. They go as far as a guy like LaNorris Snellers goes, and obviously they have the defense. Florida the same way with DJ Lagway. Those guys are the real amplifiers. Brad, you had another daring prediction as well. This one is in Chapel Bill. Bill Belichick, you said he's going to start out 0-3 in his first 3 games in Power 4 play. You look at the schedule there. You got TCU at home. You're on the road in Orlando against first-year head coach Scott Frost, throwback. And then you got Clemson at home as well. So make the case why the Tar Heels might be 0-3 in Power 4 play under Bill Belichick.
Yeah, you guys know I live about an hour from Chapel Hill. All the preseason hype is nothing to do with Tobacco Road and basketball, fellas. It's all Bill Belichick season right now. But that said, spring practice starts this week, and we have no idea how this Tar Heels 2 deep is going to look under Bill Belichick. We don't know who QB1 is right now. We don't know who the offensive arsenal is after losing Amarion Hampton, a guy I think should be a first-round pick at running back. The openers against TCU, bowl team last year. They're going to probably be an 8 or 9 win team in the Big 12. And can you imagine the pressure that's going to be on Belichick to win at night on Labor Day at home inside Kenan Stadium? That's a tough game. I wouldn't be surprised if TCU is a small favorite in that game. Then you look at UCF in Orlando. That's never an easy road trip. And then Clemson comes to Chapel Hill as the preseason ACC favorite. So UNC probably going to be 2-3 after September. They are going to bowl season this year, but those first 3 Power 4 games, man, I don't like it for Coach Bill Belichick.
So you said Chapel Bill, and we know what Bill is like when he was in New England. He just wears you down. And those guys were getting paid when they were in the Patriots building. Guys are getting paid now in college, but they have the opportunity to leave and hit the transfer portal. So just say, hypothetically speaking, they go 0-4. What is that morale going to be like in that building, Brad?
That's a very good question. I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of UNC fans who are maybe, middling between the basketball and football program right now sell all their Bill Belichick stock. Because if he, goes 5-7 in year 1 against arguably one of the Power 4's easiest schedules, I mean, you guys look at this thing from top to bottom, man. There's a lot of games that UNC will be favored in just by showing up because it's that easy when you don't play, the top 5 or 6 ACC teams. Clemson is really the only tough game that, they're going to be athletically marginalized at. But I just think UNC is a team that, expectations should be about 7-5 in year 1. But if they do lose those first 3 games of the year to Power 4 competition, sans wins over Charlotte and Richmond in the opening month, there's going to be some griping in Chapel Hill. Why are we paying this guy, $10.5 million a season?
Brad, a little cold water for your friends in Chapel Hill. Protect yourself, buddy. Only an hour away, like you said. Brad Crawford, we appreciate you, man, as always. Guys, be sure to check out his work at 247sports.com, including his 10 daring predictions for the 2025 season.